folks, this is Nick from Cigar&Whiskey. I've got with me the beautiful and unabashedly calm man after I flubbed the first interview with FaceTime on an iPhone. Thank you so much for taking this
It's
extra
just it's
time.
the universe saying that we need to spend more time together, Nick.
It does, actually,
Yeah.
it does. So, we were talking about the new album that you brought out, which was the International Roots and Blues,
Kitchen
which,
party. That's
yeah,
right.
there we go, Kitchen Party. And it had you, Lloyd Spiegel, and Susie Vinnick
You got it. That's right.
as part of the album. Now, from what we went over in the previous interview, Lloyd is in a completely different country. Susie is in Ontario, and you're in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So, how did you manage to actually go through the creation of the album? Because I know a lot of the file share was used, and I know that it was composed during the last year of COVID before you made the master recording and released it.
Yeah. So we had spent a lot of time over the pandemic doing, FaceTime or Zoom or whatever, what have you. Just whenever the opportunities lined up, because like you say, Lloyd lives in Australia, and so that's depending on where he is in Australia. That can be anywhere from a 12 to a 15-hour time difference with Halifax, and then of course Susie's in Ontario, and so that's a 1 hour difference. And so just to kind of juggling the times was a little tricky at first, just to try to get everyone together, in between shows and traveling and all the stuff that we at the time, trying to do to get back on our feet with touring through the pandemic. But we would find these spots and we would chat and we would talk about ideas for the sound of the album, and what, like, logistically what seemed to make sense to be able to bring those pieces together, knowing that we were going to be in three different parts of the world, to try to make it happen. So the principles that sort of came out of the conversations were, we wanted to make it feel like it was like have the arrangements feel very natural, as if we were seated around the table, the three of us, either playing guitar or playing a couple of guitars and a bass or that sort of thing, because Susie's a great bass player. So there's lots of really cool bass moments on the album with Susie having tracked. And then Susie's also a great guitar player, so a rhythm and lead. So there's opportunities on the album where she's doing that as well. And so that was one principle. The other principle is that we really only wanted to pick a few moments where not where we wanted it to be sound a little more full than just three of us together. Even
Mhm.
though the three of us together can sound pretty full, there were a few moments in a studio recording where it was felt that it needed just a little bit more production added to the song to really kind of bring the whole song together. But then there's other moments on the album where it's very stripped back and it is just the three of us. And so there was that principle to sort of balance the sonics of the whole album as a concept. And then the third principle was to have it be something that could easily translate to the stage when we went on tour, because we did these 26 shows right across Canada. And the biggest thing that we wanted to offer our fans was the fact that this is the first time that our three different fan groups got to see us together as one unit. And we wanted to be able to perform the music on the album as close to the recording as how we envisioned it. So I think with those three principles, we ended up coming up with a really great album that has a lot of ebb and flow. There's a lot of emotion in it. There's some cheekiness in some of the moments of the album, but then there's some really raw vulnerability that comes through on some of these other songs. And I think with the three of us having come at living in blues, roots and blues and folk, but doing it, having three different perspectives and having walked three different paths, sort of collectively built this soundboard that made for a really, really fun project to put together for fans.
Now, I remember the previous bit that we did last week. You mentioned that there were challenges in regards to trying to get your dates for live performances because of changes with COVID and everything else. But you managed to come through, as far as I remember from our conversation.
That's right.
People that don't know Charlie, he writes, sings, and plays guitar. You usually have three guitars on, or two guitars with you when you're doing your music?
Yeah, usually if I'm doing a solo tour, I'll usually travel with. Recently, it's been like one or two acoustics, one electric, and one bass guitar. Because I do play a little bit of bass in my solo shows. I also do some looping where I sort of build the foundation of the song with those different instruments, so that it comes in. I can deliver a more full sound than if it was just me and the acoustic guitar.
On the album, you do some singing. I know Sue sings at least on 1 to 2 tracks, and there's some from Lloyd Spiegel, but I think the whole album itself is a great a great meal for the soul in regards to auditory tickles, if you will, to the ear. There's nothing really more blessed than having someone who lives in Nova Scotia, right nearby to New Brunswick, that actually decides that I want to do this and I really want to have these two people coming along board. Hopefully, we'll see you guys over at one of our festivals here in New Brunswick. At least you and Susie, but I'm not sure about Lloyd because it's international travel to come over into Canada.
It's definitely a bit of a travel, but Lloyd has done it. Lloyd's very very savvy when it comes to international travel, and he's no stranger to traveling to Canada, especially after this last year, because he's done quite a few trips to Canada, not like over and above the tour that the three of us did together. And so we do have some Ontario shows for Acord, Spiegel, and Vinnick lined up for the spring of 24. And who knows? I mean, I always saw like 26 shows is a lot across Canada, but that doesn't mean that there's only 26 places in Canada to play, right?
No.
There's just so many great venues, but not everyone was able to work within that calendar. So there were lots of venues that we didn't get to on this tour. And we did play in New Brunswick. We did play at the Playhouse. We did play Imperial Theatre in St. John. We did play the Riverview Arts Centre in Riverview, New Brunswick. We played even in Bristol, Victoriaville. And so we did manage to get to a few places through New Brunswick, but there's lots of great venues that would be a wonderful. It'd be great to bring this back, and like you say, even bring it back to some festivals. Like it'd be, I think of opportunities like Harvest or Hullabaloo or what's that great festival in St. Andrews? Not Sloppy Fest, is it? No.
No, it's I got it on the tip of my tongue, unfortunately.
That's I keep confusing it with one other, but I mean there's great festivals through New Brunswick.
Yeah.
And so that would be a wonderful thing to be able to bring back to the Maritimes at some point next year, if the stars align and there's presenters who are able to kind of come together to do a block booking. But that's the nature of kind of coming out of the pandemic right now, is that not all the presenters are coming back at the same pace. It only feels like just now, like this time of year that we're moving into, when you move into late summer and early fall, there's a lot of showcase conferences that take place. And when you go to those showcase conferences, you're ideally setting up work for 12 to 18 months down the line. And so I think with a project like A Court Spiegel and Vinnick, there's definitely legs where you could come back with a volume 2. If people really like it, and maybe if it picks up some awards at Maple Blues, or at Canadian Folk Music, or ECMAs, for instance, that sort of thing. We still have yet all of that to move through, where there's opportunities to leverage the recording and continue to build on what could be sort of framed as a volume 2, if you will, for 2024.
Because I know that with the fact that the album released this year, as some people know, you're going to qualify as one of the Maple Blues nominees, or one of the candidates anyways. Because for those that don't know, here in Canada, the Maple Blues Awards has a set deadline in regards to albums released within the calendar year, from I can't remember if it's the 21st of September to the next 21st of September.
Yes.
Anything released between those periods will be eligible for a potential nomination and potential win.
Yeah. I was, on that, just as a side note, I mean, we're sort of talking industry talk now, but the Music Nova Scotia nominations just came out today. And so it was nice to see a lot of friends up for the category, for different categories, a lot of friends nominated. Unfortunately, this album, as great as it is, and as proud of it as I am, because not only did I play, I did a lot of I did the mixing and the editing of the album. Unfortunately, it wasn't eligible for Music Nova Scotia Awards, because technically, with the three of us, it was only 1/3 Nova Scotian, and so it didn't meet the eligibility criteria. But I think with some of them, because that's a regional thing, right? That's a provincial thing. So
that's steep.
Well, I mean, I understand it's meant to kind of keep the focus on Nova Scotia artistry, and so I get that. But I think with some of the larger, like the East Coast Music Awards, or the Canadian Folk Music Awards, or Maple Blues Awards, that have a more of a national profile, I really have a lot of, I have a lot of faith, a lot of belief in this album, to be able to hopefully catch a couple of nominations, and because I haven't received a Canadian Folk Music Award nomination before, so I would be super proud if an album like that received its first nomination. And over the years, I've been lucky to be nominated for Maple Blues Awards, but I've actually never won. And so if an album like this was the one that sort of opened the door, I mean, those are always, everyone's always hoping for those sort of those opportunities when you're putting your music out. But I think an album like this that really has some great collaborative moments on it, I think is I have a lot of pride of what went into this album, and the fans seem to really like it, which is awesome. And hopefully, as it moves through all the various cycles, the industry is also going to like it. and we just it's kind of like now you put it out to the universe and see what happens.
Yeah, well, I'm liking it, and I'm a DJ, so for those that don't, well, probably a lot do know, every province has their own spin on the music industry when it comes to awards. New Brunswick has New Brunswick Music Awards, but they mostly we go the provinces in the Maritimes. We have the ECMAs.
Sure.
Which, depending on how they host it, where they want to host it, they send it to one or the other cities. But mostly it's between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and PEI. That tends to be more the focus. They manage to go out at least once or twice to Newfoundland, but it's a costly endeavor to do so.
It is. Yeah.
Then here in New Brunswick, I know we had Festival 506, which should still be going on strong every year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. And then outside of the provinces, we've got the Junos.
Yep.
We've got the Maple Blues Awards, which goes just for the blues categories.
That's right.
And that's pretty much it, if I remember.
And then, of course, the Canadian folk music.
There's that too.
Yeah. And then the Canadian Country Music Awards. That usually takes place in around mid-September, I think it is. And so, yeah, and with the, and it's unique because I don't think every province has a provincial music association.
No.
I know Ontario, of course, does, but I don't think Quebec does. I don't think, well, it's possible Manitoba or Saskatchewan do. I know Alberta does. And I know BC, they host a couple of different things. They have one conference called Breakout West, and they also have Pacific Contact. Saskatchewan has OSAC, which is not so dissimilar to ECMAs, but with the Atlantic provinces, as you well know, it's sort of broken into the 5 territories that they sort of earmark as jurisdictions. Of course, PEI and New Brunswick, and then you have mainland Nova Scotia, but then you have Cape Breton Island, and then you have Newfoundland and Labrador. And so with those 5 jurisdictions, that's how they rotate where the conference is going to be each year. And so I think this year, where was it this year? I think it was Halifax. It was Halifax this year. It was Fredericton last year, and I think next year it's going to Charlottetown, if I'm not mistaken.
The fact that you actually did this during a downtime. Now, don't get me wrong, everyone had their thing to do. Everyone was doing something to actually keep themselves busy. I know myself, I pretty much just rummaged around the house. I know for you did some house updates or upkeeps, but you also, for a period of time during the first weeks of the pandemic, you were Professor Dad.
Oh,
to your son.
Yeah, in those early days of the pandemic, when we were all uncertain as to how long is this gonna last, and okay, so we're gonna close the schools for a couple of weeks. Okay, so all the kids went out on March break, and it was that week when provinces. I remember we were in Quebec visiting in-laws, and Quebec, they had announced that they were closing their border and doing a curfew and stuff like that. And then we thought, and then we heard Nova Scotia was doing the same. So we thought, well, we just drove to Montreal, and like a day later, all these announcements came out. So we're like, well, we've got to hop in the car and drive back to Halifax before there's complications of trying to get back into the province. So we did, And in those early days, the school boards, the province made the announcement that they were going to cancel school for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They were going to reevaluate at the end of March of what they were going to do, and then they realized that this was something that was going to go on and on and on. And so they didn't have, at the time, they didn't have the online modules that of using like I guess what they Google School or whatever they use to be able to deliver online curriculum now. But in those early weeks, they just didn't, and so teachers were kind of left to. They'd send out these emails to the parents and say, okay, this week, this is what I want. If you can get your kids to focus on this and that. And she would email like different things that we would print off here. And so for the first couple of weeks, like that was it. We adjusted the living room and made it look like a classroom. We set up a table and a chair and every day for a few hours, I would sit down with my son and go over the class work. And the tricky thing is that he goes to school. His whole academic career is in French, and my French is horrible. And so that's the part I didn't tell you last time.
It was entirely in French, and I don't think your French is that horrible. It's just lack of practice.
Lack of practice, absolutely. And so he spent probably as much time trying to teach me as I was trying to help him learn his subjects. But like most parents, we struggled through, but we did get through it, and then it became a little easier when the schools had developed their online approach to being able to deliver the education. But yeah, that's what I called myself, is because in those early days it was like everything is shut down. So it's just like people would call me up and I would just I'd leave my voicemail, just said, hey, look, you've got Charlie the musician, but for the next couple of weeks, I'm Professor Dad, and I'm going to be completely out of the office for the foreseeable future until the world goes back to normal. And and in 2020, in those first few months, no one knew how severe it was going to be, and the downturn, certainly in the music industry, how long it was going to last. So it was you just had to find things to pass the time, and you had to find things to keep your mind sharp. And as an artist, because you couldn't play with other musicians, you had to find ways of connecting with musicians through technology, and try to keep writing and practicing your instrument and your craft. But it was for a while there, it felt like, is this ever going to come back?
Now, during that period, I know that during the failed interview, we discussed about what you did during the pandemic, because you had to do your craft, but you decided, I'm going to put a positive spin on it and actually keep doing my living by using Twitch. If I
Yeah,
remember
that's right.
correctly.
Yeah, that's right. So for about a year before the pandemic, I had been streaming on the website Twitch. Most people, when they think of Twitch, they think of it as a website for video gamers, to be able to live stream their play and have fans talk about the game and that sort of thing. And it's true, that's how it started. But the platform had, a few years back, had really blown up to be able to have different categories for all sorts of different creative disciplines, and they had created a music category for musicians of any level, whether you were just like complete amateur, or maybe you were intermediate player who likes to sing at the campfire, or you do the occasional gig around town, and even industry level professional musicians. There was an opportunity for musicians of all background to create a channel and start performing. And so I did, and I had been doing it, like I said, for about a year. And then when everything shut down, I had this community sort of built up, and I just doubled down on playing on Twitch, and I would spend a few hours each day here in front of my you can't see it from this angle, but I've got kind of a studio set up here where there's cameras and there's television lighting and that sort of thing that I had set up to do the shows. And I say that as if it was a major big production, but that's only because the geek in me wanted to have a little bit of gear set up, right? Because I'm a total I'm a techie that way. I love that sort of stuff, but none of that's not required for being on Twitch, and but it was all part of sort of offering up sort of a nice kind of a visual look for people when they found my channel. And people would come in and hang, and it wasn't like I was singing songs for 4 hours straight. People would make requests, and then we'd have some conversation, and maybe tell a silly story or share a joke, and then we'd sing another couple of songs and just keep. So it was very conversational, and it was a great way to stay connected with with the human race for a couple of years while we were all hibernating. And now I've been off of Twitch for about a year while things have while I was focusing on sort of rebuilding live performance and that sort of thing and being in the studio again. But I have friends that I made out of that I still talk to on a very regular basis. Musicians that I collaborated with who have become friends, and I text with them day to day, and that was a really wonderful experience for me because it maintained in me the joy of music. Because for a lot of people, and I'm sure people in the industry, and I'm sure people just locally, that when everything shut down, a lot of people thought, okay, you know what, maybe I'm done, and I'll go do something else, or maybe I'll take early retirement, or I just don't want to come back to this because I've realized I wasn't actually happy doing this job. And so for a lot of people, it became a bit of a reckoning of kind of looking ourselves in the mirror and saying, what is it that I really like about my job, when so many people had to switch to working from home, and or realizing that I'm not doing what I like anyway, so this is a good opportunity for me to change gears. For me, it became an opportunity to sort of reevaluate the things that I love about music, and I was able to focus on those things as opposed to some of the more traditional administrative details of working in the music industry.
If you had, for the lack of a better word, writer's block for the creative side of trying to write your songs, that you would actually take some time off and go into the kitchen and cook, which is actually one of your favorite pastimes.
Oh yeah, I have my grandmother to thank for that. She loved to cook, and always saw it more as a thing to do out of an act of joy, as opposed to an act of necessity or as a chore. And so that rubbed off on me. And so you can be so creative in the kitchen. Like, sure, recipes are great, but recipes are meant to be broken, right? And they're just a roadmap. It doesn't mean you have to follow the same highway from point A to point B every time. And so I always loved that aspect of creativity in the kitchen, that if I was sitting down at the table and I'm trying to work on a song and it's just not clicking, and I can't seem to get the thoughts out properly, I had another avenue to express myself creatively and work on try different cuisine and different types of cooking that always kind of sparked my interest, but just do it for the joy of it, and then share that with the family. And like, I love to bake. So, baking bread is something that I have done since I was a teenager, and like from scratch, and by lining up your loaf pans and doing it right from scratch. And so that's something that I think you can tap into a creative side that doesn't it definitely helped for me in those times where I felt like I was being blocked otherwise.
The last question that we finished I can't stop saying failed because I feel so betrayed by
You
FaceTime.
got to tell your listeners why it was. You got
Uh, Remember, folks, if you have an iPhone or an Android device and you use FaceTime, you can't record it unless you've got a third-party application that's costly and doesn't always work. So that said, my rant is done. But you had a favorite dish, and I can't remember what it was. What was your favorite dish? Was it Indian food?
no. I remember that question now. It was sushi.
Sushi. There we go. So that's everything that I needed to actually ask you this time around.
Yeah. Now, have you ever tried sushi? Do you like sushi at all?
I have,
Yeah. Oh,
and I'll
you
be.
you don't sound like you're a fan, Nick.
I tried it once, and something kind of turned me off. The funny thing is that I enjoyed the pickled ginger. I enjoyed the wasabi very much, which a lot of people don't like.
Right.
It's almost like twice the power of horseradish. But uh, I had the California roll, which
Oh, yeah.
had fish roll, which for me was my first experience with roll. It wasn't bad. Actually, it was flavorful, but it's everything went downhill when I hit the salmon part of the roll. Salmon for me is too strong for my palate.
Right.
Here I am inside the Pink Sushi on Main Street with a friend who wanted to pay me out. We tried sake and we were doing this, and all of a sudden my body decided, no, you're not just having it. And I started almost gagging, and I had to pile on the wasabi, I had to pile on the ginger, and I just munched it just as is
Sure.
to try to eliminate the taste. It was but I might try it again, but not with salmon. My
No. Yeah.
stepson is actually very fond of sushi. He discovered it this year, so he's
Yeah.
been pretty much ordering it every single time that he has a chance.
There's a couple of restaurants here locally that do have included fruit now in their rolls, and so you can get a sushi roll with mango and banana, or strawberry and mango, banana straw like or kiwi and strawberry. It's really good. But I want to say, I mean, sushi's not for everybody, but I will say, pink sushi in Moncton, right? Like for me, hands down the best sushi restaurant in New Brunswick.
Oh, really?
It's as far listen as for my money, I would do pink sushi all day long. That place is great.
A lot of people do. It's better. It's better there than when you know that they actually specialize in it, and just pretty much that. There's nothing else on the menu
Yeah,
apart from. Actually, there's nothing else on the menu apart from the vegetarian options.
yeah.
And then you've got the sashimi, which is just the fresh fish without on. I
Without
think
the
it's
rack.
on rice, but it's not rolled.
That's right. It's just like a cubed strip of the fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my experience, I'm gonna have to give it a second chance because the salmon did me in, and I'm not gonna stand for it because it's something that I have to actually try again.
Sure. Yeah. Well, listen, maybe next time I roll through Moncton, I can give you a call.
Yeah,
And
no, definitely. You know, you have my digits, so do
yeah,
I. So if I'm in Halifax, I'll give you a call to see if you're available. If not, well, so be
yeah,
it. But the same thing, if you've got time to spend, just give me a call. We'll be
we'll
glad
call
to
him Pink
actually.
Sushi. Tell him to